Welcome back to another episode of the Woman of Faith podcast. I am your host, Nancy Ruffin, and I'm really excited for this week's episode because this week I have a special guest joining me. This is a woman who I met several years ago at an event that I was invited to come speak at. And if you've been following me for a while, um, many of you know that I am a writer, I'm a storyteller, and I have on several occasions shared the story of my motherhood journey. And so at this particular event, I shared that story. I shared how difficult the process had been for me and my husband. I shared how at some point, during that process where I was struggling with my faith, where I started to feel as if I was a broken vessel, because as a woman, I felt like my body was not doing what it was designed to do, and that was bring life into the world. And so I had shared what that journey had been like for me. And there was this woman in the audience who was moved by that story. And she approached me after the event, and she had shared with me her own struggle with pregnancy and wanting to conceive. And so, me sharing my story, one, I think, validated hers, but also gave her, I think, the courage to share her story with me. At that point, I was a stranger. But I think more than that, it probably had given her a little bit of hope to kind of keep going. And so for this week, I really wanted to invite her to share her story because throughout the years that I have known her, we have become good friends. She is an incredible woman of faith. She's someone who is constantly pouring back into her community. And if I'm going to be honest, whenever I look at her, and I have often said this to her, I see almost a younger version of myself. Like when I look at her, I see who I was at her age. And so, what I want to do, this season on the Women of Faith podcast is really share a spotlight on the stories of faith um, across our community. I want to have women on here who are going to share honestly, who are going to be vulnerable, and that hopefully through them sharing their own stories, you find a shimmer of hope. You might find yourself in a season maybe where you're questioning God. Maybe you've been praying relentlessly and He hasn't answered yet. And I know that sometimes when we find ourselves in these seasons of uncertainty, it can shake our faith. It can cause us to wonder, like, God, like, where are you? Why are you forsaking me? And, if I can say anything with regards to that, is that so often we want God to move on our time, but sometimes there's purpose behind the delay. There's a reason why God isn't answering our prayers when we want God to answer our prayers. And during that process, during that waiting period, He is developing us. He is pruning us, right? He is really molding us to become the individual that can uh, really take the blessing and steward it well when we receive it, because there is a danger in receiving a blessing before we are prepared for it. And so if you find yourself in a season of uncertainty, and if you find yourself, you know, encountering some obstacle that seems insurmountable, and it really is only, it only takes, that's only going to require God to move it, I encourage you to hold steadfast to the promise of the Lord. He knows what He's doing. He knows what is best for us, even if we don't know it at the time. And just keep trusting, keep having faith. Don't lose hope, because God is always on time. So, without any further ado, I am really excited to introduce you to this week's guest who will be joining me right after this. Hello. How
Hello,
are you?
I'm good. And you?
I'm doing good. How are you feeling now that summer is almost over? We're like the last few days of summer and the kids are
Yeah,
back in school. Like I feel like everything is kind of going back to routine. How are you adjusting?
I'm adjusting well. It's a new change for me. As I have mentioned to you that, I had a 3K. Someone started 3K, my little boy, and my daughter started daycare. So for me, I feel like this back to school mode always brought me back to my back to school, right? As a kid. But
Yeah.
now I get to live it on the other side and I get to see them and then experience all of the things that we do as parents for those milestones, which is like bittersweet.
It is. It's so hard. Like being a parent is so hard because we want to keep them safe. We want to protect them. And then as they start getting older, even through these small milestones for just going to, 3K and going to daycare, we start to realize like we cannot protect our babies 100% of the time, right? At some point, we got to trust that God is going to keep them safe because that's all we really have.
Listen, I think it'll come full circle with our conversation today of like how much God tries to prepare us as best as he
Yeah.
can, but I think we just have to trust. That trust in him has to start somewhere. And for me, I know when it started, before they were even a thought, or they were very
Yeah.
much a thought. It all started. So I think now, like learning to surrender has come a little bit easier, but I think the surprising thing for me now is that they're just so ready. Like I feel like as much as I thought that,
Mhm.
especially my little daughter, my baby girl, because my son has been in daycare before, so he got a crash course into that, being
Yeah.
dropped off and pick up and all of that new environment. But with her, she had only been with family. So I was really nervous and she's doing really well. Thank God, knock on wood. Thank you,
That's
God.
amazing. But you know what? That I think that also comes from her being in a home environment where she feels safe, where she's secure, that even though you're not probably intentionally doing it, but you're instilling confidence in her so that she can go out into the world and know, okay, even though mommy and daddy are dropping me off, I know they're going to come back and get me. Because I think that so much of the fear for children at that age is like they're just where's mommy and daddy? Like they're not sure. And then the anxiety starts to kind of creep up in them, even as, being as little as they are, like they experience all of the emotions that we do. They're just, smaller people.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't get to officially introduce you. We just started talking, and I did a brief intro before you even joined us, and I talked a little bit about how we met, and how I always feel like God is so intentional in connecting individuals depending on the season of their life that they're in. But I shared about you, but I want you in your own words to tell my viewers, my listeners, when you think about Luisa, right? Like, who are you? Like, aside from the titles, right? Aside from the work that you do, like at your core, who are you? Because I want women to really start thinking about their identity, not in relation to the jobs we hold, not in relation to the work we do either in the home or outside the home, because culture and society has conditioned us to identify ourselves by what we do, the work we do, by our socioeconomic status, by like how much money we earn. And I feel like there's such a danger in that because when we attach our identity and our worth to the things that we do, like what happens then to who we are when we're no longer doing those things, right? And so so who is Luisa?
You know, that's such a great question. Luisa, at her core, is just, she's all heart and she's a giver. And I think that the older I've gotten, it's reminded me that, like, you are very much a daughter of Christ. You're a daughter of the Most High, because that giving heart and that that like inclination since I was a child to always nurture and to always be someone to guide and support someone is something that I always thought, I can't help it. It's just who I am, right? And I think that sometimes we hear the opposite of that, where sometimes folks say that, and it's not so positive things that they're like, I just
Yeah.
can't help that. But I'm grateful that somehow in the middle of my life, in the midst of all of the changes in my life, I always recognized that. And I always had people in my corner and in my circles that reminded me of that too. And I think that that's really special. So at her core, Luisa is a giver, a daughter of God, and just all heart. I just love to give to people. I love to support. I'm a girl's girl. I love to see people win. I love to see people grow. But I also love to be there in the hard moments. So I think
Yeah.
what Lisa's learned is that's who she is, and now she has to learn to always be in a position to receive that too, because that's been a journey for me. How do I also receive?
So how are you allowing yourself to receive in this season of your life, knowing that it's a struggle? Like what have you or what are you actively doing to to allow for you to receive so much of what you give to others?
I think for me, it's started with my kids. I think that vulnerability, there was a lot of me that always felt like I needed to be put together or I needed to
Mm,
just, whatever's going on, I need to have control of it. And I know that many of us can relate to that. And so this sense and need to be in control when I was trying to have a family and wanted to have a family, that was the first time that I was realizing this is bigger than me. And not being in control in this moment is something that I need to just lean into and trust that there's some peace behind that. And I did get to a place where I found peace. And then that's where everything started coming together. And I say, like, when I let peace come in, AKA God, everything just flew back, like flowed back in tenfold. So I feel like for me, the way that I'm doing it is I've leaned into my vulnerability, into community, being more
mm,
vocal about my story, who I am, the things that I thought I had to hide about myself because they were just not something you share or I didn't feel comfortable. And I'm learning to just be who I am at all times. Not just when I think, oh, it's okay to be vulnerable now. It's like, no, in the moments where I feel like I have my spirit and my intuition telling me, lay it off, back off, don't let the tears well up, don't say it. That's when I just say, no, I'm going to say it because that's exactly why I'm feeling it.
yeah. It's so interesting that we tend to fight off that which is natural to us, right? So, like, we know when the Holy Spirit is moving inside of us because we start to feel something. It'll come maybe in the form of the tears, or maybe it'll just be a feeling of just being uncomfortable. But like God is always trying to move through us. And in the intro, when I was talking about you, I shared, how you and I met and how powerful sharing our stories is. And I think also, like you, for a really long time, I was ashamed of my motherhood journey because I felt like I was broken. I felt like my body was not doing what it had been created to do, and I had just held on to so much shame around not being able to conceive, that whenever people would ask me like, oh, well, when's the baby coming, I would just be like, oh no, we don't want kids right now, like I'm focusing on my career, even though like internally I was just breaking. And then, like, kind of like you get to a point where one is just too heavy to keep hiding it and to
Mhm.
keep carrying it by yourself, and then you realize that there is power in the sharing, and it also is a release that comes from that because you don't have to like hold it on your own. And I remember when we met, it was at your mighty's event, and you came up to me after I shared my story. And the one thing that I remember is like we shared an embrace, after you shared with me your own journey and what that was like. And not to, I'm a girl's girl like you. Um, but I go to a lot of events. I talk at a lot of events. And I don't always form the level of connection that I formed with you. And so I just want you to talk a little bit about like that part of your journey. Like what, I guess, what allowed you to come and share something with me so vulnerable? Because it was the first time we had met. I don't even know if we were connected on social before that. But there was something about that moment that allowed you to be vulnerable. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I will. So I just love that you bring that up because thinking about that day and even that year, 2019 was a year where I was grappling with a lot of things about motherhood. And I was realizing, like, I want to be a mother. You know, my husband and I are college sweethearts. So we were, already married for 2 years by then. And we were like, that's the next stage, right? Like, let's go for it. But I did feel there was some things about me that were like, I wanted to, but there was almost like a hesitation or fear of like, am I going to live up to the part, because I wanted so much. And so I started to seek out community because I thought I wanted to just feel connected to women and like to other like-minded individuals and just find community outside of the day-to-day, and your private and personal circle that you have. And so I started going to the events thinking that that's what it was for. But God is good
Mm,
because when I went to that event and I saw you and you shared your story, you go to so many events and they are very personal and professional development focused, women empowerment, a lot of different things that resonate, leadership. But that right there was exactly what I needed to hear, when I needed to hear, and how I needed to hear it. And your story just hit something in me that I was like, I know that, in that moment too, you're like, I know a bunch of people are going to go up to her and speak to her. And like, I don't want to bother. But I was like, no, I need to hold her. I need to hug her. I hope she's okay with that. I'm going to speak to her. And I hope that just like there's a connection that we can have, even if it's just in that moment, because I felt it with every word that you said. And I never felt so seen and heard and just embraced the whole time that I spoke to you that I literally was like, I need to give this back to her just to thank her because I needed that. I felt so alone. I felt so like isolated because I felt like there were so many things that I wanted to talk about that I was feeling as a woman and as a daughter and as a friend, as a wife, but I was like, who understands it? Sometimes you don't know the words and you're like, is it gonna come off wrong? Is it gonna come off like conflicting? But sometimes that's what it is. You're just still figuring it all out. And so that moment to me solidified a lot of things. One, that I very much am so ready to be a mother. It's one of the
mm,
biggest things that I've ever wanted and desired. And in that moment, I said, I know this is what I want and I'm ready. I'm going to be the best mother that I can be. And I just hope that it happens soon because I just want to feel it. So hearing your story, I was like, you see, things happen when they're meant to happen. And if I feel like I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to be a mom. Nancy's felt it. And despite all of the ups and downs, despite all of the times you get asked the questions and feeling like you have to find ways to pivot that narrative around why and this,
yeah.
I was like, no, this is it. I want to do this. And that was the month, November 2019, that I told my husband, I want to do this. And so when I went
Mm,
to the event, I had just told him that month, like, I want to move forward. Let's start trying. And so you speaking, I was like, okay, this is it.
it's God.
It's God.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because there were a lot of people at that event, and there were many that came up to me, but I can tell you, I cannot remember anybody. Like you, it was just you. You were the only person that I remember, and then the only person who I still have a very personal relationship with, right? Because it just didn't stop there. And it's crazy because our relationship has evolved, but it has evolved so organically that I can't even pinpoint like a time where it shifted. It was just kind of like a natural progression, and I always tell you this. I was like, I always, whenever I look at you, I feel like I'm looking at a younger version of myself because our paths, mirror each other, so much. Like, I even to the fact that, you were praying for one baby. God has blessed you with two, like unexpected. Like, you were happy, with your beautiful, gorgeous boy. And then, right, you didn't expect it. Here comes, your beautiful daughter. And now you're living this full life, the life that you had always imagined for yourself. Can Would you say that the turning point was when you made the decision, when you said out loud, when you told your husband, I want to do this, right? Because I think that there's power in the words that we speak, in the thoughts that we think. And if we are constantly denying ourselves that which we want, it's going to evade us because we're not calling it into our lives, right? Even though God knows what we want, He wants us to go to Him. He wants us to be vocal about it and tell Him, Lord, this is what I want, and I need for you, like, to help me get there. Would you say that that was when things started to shift, for you?
Absolutely. That level of clarity, you said it. When you say something out loud, there is a level of accountability that you hold to yourself, and to the people that you're sharing that with, because that's something very special to you. When you get to that point where you share something that you feel is so sacred to you, but you feel for whatever reason you're not ready to say out loud, when you finally say that, there's a weight that's lifted off your shoulders in a way where you're like, okay, but then there is that other part of like, okay, so what happens next? And
Yeah.
I think with God and my journey, because all of 2020, then we get into like one of the heaviest times we've ever gone through as a world, it was whoa, it
Yeah.
was everywhere. And it was just such a heavy time. And I remember it was end of 2019 when we said, let's get started, let's see. And I remember my spirit just feeling so heavy and finding peace and joy in the little things, and also even spending time with each other in a way that we never had at that level because we had no choice, right? Everybody was
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
But it was just so heavy. And I remember us trying, and we're just like, what's going on? And you have the questions. So when's the baby coming? So, and then it gets to the point where some people, I don't want to, they don't do it intentionally, but there's a little less tact in the way they're asking. And it's like,
Yes.
so you just don't want them? So you just,
Yeah.
baby?
Yes.
And we're like, and in my head, it's like that knot would go. And it's like,
Yeah, I know.
I
That's
wanna.
why I had got to the point where I would tell people, like, no, I'm struggling with having a child, because then it almost smacks them in the face with, like, how rude can you
Yeah,
possibly be? And also, my own experience made me sensitive to other women, right?
correct.
Because I remember, like, prior to that, whenever I would attend weddings, like, it's almost the next natural question is like, well, when are you having kids? Like, I stopped asking that question because you just never know what someone is struggling with,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
so you know how you said you would say I'm struggling? It got to the point where, and it didn't happen in 2020 right away. It happens after a year of trying, and I'll get into kind of a little bit of the backstory there. But it got to the point in 2021 where I would hold my hand out and say, I am. So pray for me. Something I,
Mm,
and literally never would they ask again. And in that moment,
wow.
it was good for me because my eyes get a little teary because in that moment, even though it was a vulnerable moment, I found strength in
Yo,
like,
yeah, you
no,
took your power
pray,
back from that question.
pray for
Where
me.
for me, I think it was a defense mechanism. And so I was like, I allowed them to take that from me, but you reclaimed it, in saying I am, and I want you to pray for me. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
If you could pray for
that
me, it's
shift.
something that I really want. So yeah, we want a baby. Pray for us. And right away I would feel, and I could tell that they just felt so uncomfortable and so bad.
Mhm.
But then I had an aunt that I never knew this. And she goes, Mommy, it took me a while to have my second kid, which is my cousin. And she's like,
Mhm.
and I never told anybody what was going on. This is the first time I share this with you. And this is now a woman that is in her late 50s, early 60s, and she's sharing this. And I was like, so see,
Wow.
that's another reason where I was like, God, you're reminding me that there's power in my testimony because you're right in the middle of it and I'm going to keep putting you right in the middle of it every single time. And it's going to help somebody. Because I did that for me to kind of just be like, you know what? I don't know what to say anymore. Because really, just pray for me. But also to kind of set that, like, kind of
Yeah.
some sort of
The
precedent there
boundary.
of like a boundary, like, all right, can we change the way that you're asking me this every time?
Right.
Because now it's getting to the point where it is hard. It is hard to talk about it. And so when she did that, I was like, wow, imagine how many of our the women in our families,
Yes.
in our communities that are struggling in silence, that are going through this and feeling that shame and feeling like, well, if so and so can do it, even down to then when you get to the point where you have children and the conversations about nursing and all of those things happen. And
Yeah.
there's just so much that comes with, like, there should be so much joy and levity, even though it is such an intense shift in our bodies that transforms us in every way. But there's so much shame that we end up feeling for
Yeah.
different reasons. And it's so unfortunate because we do it to each other unintentionally, but because sometimes it's
Right.
all someone new.
Yeah. And I think about your aunt and what her journey must have been like all those years ago where she was in it by herself, right? I mean, I feel like our generation, we've become really intentional now. Like we're living in a time where we're actively seeking healing, where we're actively seeking to do things different from the way like our parents did or our grandparents. And so she didn't have that because it just didn't exist back then. And then I also think, had she been more vocal about it, you probably would have, it wouldn't have taken you probably so long to share your story because you would have had someone that you could have confided in, you know? And so when you think back, like on when your motherhood journey began, what were some of the challenges you faced? Like for me, it was not happening. Me and my husband had to do, intrauterine insemination. It was just a lot of unconventional ways, and not anything how I had imagined, conceiving. But when you want something bad enough, it's like you're willing to do and try anything. What was, if you don't mind sharing, like what was that journey like for you?
Of course. So, like I said, November 2019, let's give this a try. And like there's joy, there's excitement in us, and just we're ready. 2020, the whole year goes by, it hits November. Now it's a year. And I told myself, I think it's worth, maybe we'll look into things, see if everything's okay, because why not? We want to just make
Yeah.
sure. So we do that and everything's fine. So we're like, okay, so what is it? But because of the fact that we had been trying, they said, okay, we can start with, first line of defense, intrauterine insemination. We could do an IUI. And so we do our research on that. We do, look at all of our options and we say, okay, let's do that. And I remember even having a conversation with someone about it, not even saying that I would do it, but just like throwing it out there because it came up in a
Yeah.
conversation and they were older and they were like, but maybe that's like, why not leave it to God? And like, and there was a part of me that felt conflicted because I'm like, I am leaving it to God, but I do think that if there's resources there and like information and I can make an informed decision that way, like, why not? So I said, okay. And what did we do? We ended up going through 4 IUI cycles between May 2021 and the last one was the beginning of September 2021. And in that time, we did it back to back to back. And I will tell you the emotional and physical, because it's even
Yeah.
though it's less invasive, you're still taking hormones, you still have to do the one trigger shot, there's so much. And then every single time the weight. And God forbid
Yeah.
you share even with a very, 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 very small circle of people that you're doing.
And then there's also timing your ovulation, making
Yes,
sure
going into
that
the exams, it's a whole thing. You have people, it gets to the point where you're just like, okay, this is all normal. Like, I'm just going through a
yeah.
routine, but you're like, but is it? Like, I just, what am I doing?
Mhm.
Is it okay? Is it going to happen this time? And then I'll never forget after our first IUI, we were on a vacation. We went to the Dominican Republic, my husband and I, and we even have like a video of us saying, like, because I missed my period. My cycle didn't arrive. My on flow didn't come. And I said, "Oh my goodness, that means that must be it." Like, but we'll
Right.
wait. And about the tail end of the trip, it wasn't the case. And I remember before that there was a video of us in the room and we were like, listen, if you're this is your mommy and daddy, like we were just like putting it
Yes.
out there and really like, and we were like, we know it's only the first time, but this never happens. I'm so consistent on my cycle, like this
Right.
has to be it. And so it wasn't. And I remember that time really hit both of us like hard. But I think for me, I was like, I was also internally preparing, like it's the first time they tell you this, so don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
But I think it really rocked my husband. And I think that's something that warrants a conversation, you know, when he's open to also sharing his story. But like, we actually did a live about this. Where we both got really vulnerable from the women's perspective and the partner, the husband's perspective. And so he shared a lot of what it was, you know, going through that and seeing what I was going
Yeah.
through and also his purview, like what he's going through. And so it was really
I'm
tough.
surprised that he got you to do a live because I feel like you're a lot more guarded on social. Like
Then he,
he definitely shares more than you.
oh
So,
yeah, oh yeah. And so, well, you know, the live was his idea. And it was funny because the live happens a week before or 2 weeks before I gave birth. So funny enough, it was
I missed that. I
2023.
need to go see if that's in the
Yes,
archives.
I'll send it to you. We go right in, but basically it's talking a little bit about this. And so we go through cycle one, this happens, two, three, and then I'll never forget the last one. And that one really hits me because as hardworking as I am, I didn't want to, you know, as committed as I am to my work, I didn't want to take off of work during a very busy time.
Mm.
And they were going to do the last insemination. And I did it during my lunch
Oh
because it
my
was
God.
right by my job. And so that right there, the reason I say is because I'll never forget that that entire time, and this is after the fact that I reflect on it, the whole time I'm anxious because they're taking a little bit longer to call me. And so
Oh,
instead of being mentally focused on what I've been telling myself, I've worked up all this point, and now we're back
yeah,
to the office, September 2021. And like there was a lot going on, and I really couldn't take that week, but I didn't want to change it because we've timed everything up to that point.
right.
I don't want to screw the cycle up, right? And so I'm there just thinking, I'm just caught up on like, I need to get back to work, but I want to do this, but I need to get back to work. And I was like, God was like, yep, not ready.
Mm,
Ready. This is, you say you
wow.
want it, but you're not ready. Even now,
Wow.
you're still, something's you're not ready. And I promise you that something happened that month, end of September, where I had to make a decision and leave my job. Um, and I told myself, well, this is the time I'm going to prioritize it. If I'm leaving my job because I have to choose this and this is what I'm going to go with at this time, then I'm going to do it. And so I was on leave. And in October, I was on leave. And we found out in December 2021 that I was 5 weeks pregnant. And I will tell you that I also went in that November, 2 years now, 2 years of trying with some IUI cycles in there. But now, November 2021, I went to Church Girl with you.
Yes,
That
I
one,
remember. I
and that one
remember.
was so huge because even in that time, there was a lot of things that I was working on internally and journaling and really talking through feelings and really like cleansing myself of some things that I didn't even realize tied to motherhood that were holding me back. And I finally surrendered. And I remember standing before that stage that we treated as like our altar. And I said, God, please. And I let them pray over me. And I said, God, here in this moment, I'm telling you right now, I hope you know that it's coming from the depths of my heart. I surrender. I truly, like, I promise you. And December 22nd, 2021, we took that test after he made me wait like 10 days. I was like, sir, it's time. Like, it was the blessed days that time. And he's like, no, we're not doing that again. And so we waited in that bathroom. And he said, what do we do? Do we go outside? Do we stay in here? He said, let's just kind of stand here and look to the side. I said, okay, yeah, let's do that. And we do that. And we look over until this day, that feeling, we just looked at each other and we were like,
You're getting me teary-eyed here because I know what that feeling feels like. I
oh,
know what that feels like. And there's nothing compares to it. You can't put words to it, but it's like your greatest wish being answered.
Yes.
And oh my God. And I
Yes.
remember when you told us,
Ah.
and prayed over you, we would pray for you all the time.
And
And
I
then
wanted to mention that too, like the culmination, like getting to that church girl, but starting from before, joining the Bible study groups. And that was another place where I said, I don't know all of these women here, but I know we all want to be the best version of ourselves, for our families, for God. And I'm just going to lay it all out there. And if we're going to pray with conviction for each other, I'm going to do that for them and they're going to be able to do that for me. So let me just tell them my biggest desire right now is to have my own child. And God saw us through because how many breakthroughs, how many praise reports did we have that we said, it's nothing else but God. There's no way. There's
yeah,
no way until this day it's happening. So that right there, and then church girl happening. And I remember getting home from the church girl, and my husband said, "How was it?" And I said, "I just feel so free.
ooh,
I don't even know how to explain it. This is the most free I've ever been. This has been the most uncertain time for us because of changes that I had to make. But God has been seeing us through, and I've never felt like I've questioned anything. I can't question anything. Everything is exactly how it's supposed to be right now. We ended up getting a dog. That's after church girl. That's within a few days after that. He surprised me because we used to say if it's not happening, we're gonna get a dog, and we got our
yeah,
dog November 23rd, and literally December 22nd, I took the
a month later, because God knew you were ready. It's interesting because, again, in the intro, I'm talking about how there's danger in receiving a blessing that we're not ready for. And sometimes when we find ourselves in the waiting season and we keep going through these cycles, right, where we keep praying to God, but it seems like He's not answering, what He's really doing is preparing us so that when He gives it to us, we can steward it well, right? And so with you, you had to prioritize motherhood. You couldn't just be, balancing it. It had to be the thing you wanted most. And when you did that, that was when God moved.
yes.
So, like, thinking back on that, like in hindsight, what did you learn about God and about yourself through the process of becoming a mother?
I learned that God is ever present,
Mm,
that there is not one prayer, thought, idea, anything that goes missed. He knows it before you're even fully even processing it, before you're making sense of
yeah,
it, packaging it all pretty. Something I learned about myself in that moment, knowing that about God now, is that He doesn't want me to make it pretty and put it in a bow. He doesn't want me to come when I've intellectualized and have all the logic and make it sound like
right,
I know myself. No, you know yourself. And you need to express it, whether it's through words, actions, whatever it is, as it's coming through you. You
yeah,
need to allow it to just come through you, not for validation for someone else to receive it for them, or for you to
right,
say it in a way that's like, oh, let me make it make sense for them. It doesn't need to make sense for anybody but you. And whoever it's going to resonate with, it will. And if it's not, that's just not their journey that they're on, and that's
right.
okay. So I think for me, it taught me God is ever present. He's always there. He's always listening. And for me, just be. If you really just sat still, Luisa, and you forgot about all the things you have to check off and do, the things you have to be. There was an actor the other day that he has a terminal illness. And he said, I learned in the moments when I couldn't be all the things that I was used to being, the father, the provider, the actor, all of these things. When I'm sick and I'm laying in bed managing this illness and I can't be all of those things, then I realized that what I am is worthy of love and
Oof,
worthy of God. worthy of God's
Wow.
love, worthy of giving love, and that is it. Because sometimes we're not gonna be, for whatever reason, we're not gonna
Yeah.
feel like we're gonna be, I can show up in that way and I can only show up that way to be that. No. Sometimes you have to just let it go.
Yeah.
Truly, truly let it go. And by letting it go, you get to really just be. And that's what I've been learning. And I think it did prepare me because there's so many things that I felt like, if I think now, since I've had kids, so many changes that have undergone, like I've undergone, I think I would have lost it because I would have felt
Right.
like, I don't know, it's not part of the plan. And I would have gotten so stuck in the weeds with that, that I think he did prepare me in that because I realized, you know what, God, I'm going to remain obedient. I'm going to listen and I'm going to trust that it's going to be okay. And it always is. It
It
always.
is. So now that you're a mother of two, how do you see God's faithfulness reflected in them? Like when you look at them, when you hold them at night, right? How do you see God and his faithfulness?
That tenderness, that wholesome, unconditional love. Like, I don't know, that feeling of your child just laying on you, whether they're just tired or they're not feeling well, or they just had a long day of playing and being around a bunch of people and that they just want to run to you. They just want to run and they find refuge and safety in your arms. That to me, and even now with school and like seeing them being away and like seeing them come back or picking them up and that smile, that like the radiance in their face is just like God is such a warm, loving God. He's always ready like this with open arms to
Yes.
receive us. He's like, hi, it doesn't matter if you didn't do anything. And that's what we do as parents. They're learning.
Yep.
So it's okay. You made a mistake. It's okay, like potty training. Oh, it's okay, puppy. It happens.
Right.
An accident's gonna happen, but you know
Yes.
what? Next time we can try and you can tell us when you have to go. So down to the simple things, that's also another thing, simplicity. Like it's all just ebb and flow. And that love, I promise you that you hold, I know you know, that love that
Right.
you have for your children and that they in turn shine back on you is like I no money. There's no price tag on that.
Yeah, it's crazy too because for me, whenever I feel like I've disappointed God, like I look at my kids, and even when they think they've just like there's nothing that they can do really that to disappoint me. And so they bring me back to like, wow, this is how God loves us. Like that much. And when we think about Jesus and the sacrifice he made for us on the cross, like, right, what parent wouldn't do the same for their kids?
Yep.
Like we would all go to that cross if it meant that we would that our kids could live on,
Yes.
right? We would all take that death. And so when I look at my kids, it reminds me of that. It reminds me of God's just the fullness of the love that he has for us. Like, and even when I look at my children, I'm like, how can people not believe in God? Like if you're a parent and you look at your children, like how could you explain it? Like there's no other explanation but that God exists, because us and our own humanity cannot make that happen. It had
Correct.
to be a part of God's intentional design for humanity.
Yes.
Just is just mind boggling.
Also,
And
it
so what
also
advice
aligns with
would
the
you give?
message you said
What was
earlier,
that?
the message that you sent on Instagram about how we're intentionally created and designed by God. I don't know if you sent it today, ironically,
Yes,
but yes,
yes.
there's so much intention there, and our kids definitely show that. So that's so true.
And what's crazy too, because we cannot create our children, right? It's not like we can design them and say, okay, I want you to be like this, and I'm gonna put this, and we're gonna and this is who you're gonna be. Like, we don't have that power. It's God. God gives us the he gives us the child, he places it in our womb, he designs that next human life with the gifts they're going to have, the talents, the brain, the all the things they're going to do once they make it earthside. We have no control over that.
None.
So it's just like, It's all God. So I don't know who's listening to this, who's watching this, but there's nothing greater than God in this world. And if you feel alone, get yourself into a community with individuals that are going to remind you that you were God's intentional creation. The world is going to try to knock you down. The world is going to try to get you to believe that you are not, as magnificent as you are. You got to get yourself out of the world and get yourself into the word, because God has, it's the blueprint, for all of us. What advice would you give to women who are currently struggling with infertility, or any other thing that they're waiting on God, to answer them with? Like, how can you instill that sense of hope in someone else who might feel like it's never going to happen for me?
Write it, proclaim it, pray for it, seek prayer. Um, sit with yourself. There was so many times that I also developed a habit during that time of voice notes. I would do voice notes. I have hours of voice notes from those years. Hours. And I still started doing them after having my son. So it was, I not too long ago I went back to some to listen, but whatever that practice is for you that you find is freeing, that you feel becomes a safe place for you, whether it's by yourself, if it's therapy, if it's prayer, if it's Bible study group, if it's voice notes, if it's a notepad on your phone, that you just feel like, you know what, if I write it with a bunch of everything else that I have to do in life, let me start writing things for myself just to get your mind and just free yourself of all that heaviness, because a lot of what is that mental load that you hold when you want something so much really does take a toll on you physically and emotionally. So finding those practices or individuals that are going to help you feel like you are heard, that you are okay, and that you're going to be okay. Like maybe you're not feeling okay, right? But that it's going to
Yeah.
be okay, and that you deserve to share your desires with the world. You deserve to share your desires with God, and that you shouldn't have to withhold those deepest, most tender parts of yourself, because
Mhm.
that right there is also part of being a mother. There's so much
Yeah.
of us that we're going to hold and harbor. And so you're already a mother. If you're already care so much about that and how much you want it, start leaning into that and realize like I'm already ready for this. So now I just have to take care of me through this, because this is still a lot to feel, and allow myself to feel it, but know that I deserve it and that it's going to happen in God's time, and that it's going to happen the way that it's meant to happen.
Yeah.
And that motherhood and caregiving and all of that is already something embedded in you. Like it's something you have, and you're already exhibiting it in so many ways internally and also outwardly. And always be
Yeah.
cognizant of that, because I think that that also takes away a little bit of the shame and starts to make you realize, like, no, I I may not feel like like I'm seeing it happen this way, but it's happening in other ways. God's working through me. And so I think that finding those practices or individuals, um, honoring yourself and your emotions at all times,
Yeah.
and just, letting it go. As hard as that is, because I did get that a lot. Some people would tell me, you're just probably stressed. Just let it go. You're thinking about it too much. But that's easier said than done.
It is.
Want something so bad, that's all
Is
it's
all you
gonna
think
take.
about.
So you
Is so
kind
true.
of telling someone that is like, yes, I get it. There's some validity in that, but bless you.
Sorry.
No, 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 you're good. God bless you.
I'm
There's
coughing. I
validity
don't
in
know.
that. But you also, it's like it's you also don't want to put that pressure on yourself and tell yourself no, because I don't want to think about it because it's gonna stress me, because then that
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense either. So I think just honoring and trusting yourself through it is key.
I
Talk,
love that.
write it
I
out.
mean, so you know, you, I think being a mom is probably what gives you the most joy, but you're also, you're a lot of other things too. You're a wife, you're a career woman. You know, you pour so much into the community. You're also the president of the 100 Hispanic Women New Jersey program. There's so much that you do on a day-to-day basis. How how are you juggling it all? Like I never like to say balance because I just there's no way we can balance, and I feel like saying the word balance gives it's just not an accurate representation. And I don't want other women out there to feel like, oh, well, they got it all balanced out, because it's not. Because some days it's like this, and I'm giving more to one thing. It's never balanced. It's always like juggling balls in the air, and I'm just hoping I don't drop one. So, like for you, how do you juggle all of the responsibilities that you have while also kind of staying centered in God? Because I know there's some times where it's so easy to kind of lose the focus, of that.
I'm still working through that every day, right? But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said like the juggling piece, because you're right. You can't give 100% to everything at the same time. So it's really just being intentional with your time as to like, okay, what am I going to really prioritize today? And if it requires that I prioritize myself today in this way, I know the things that are important and need to happen though when it comes to my family. So I'm gonna make sure that that is also, gets my priority. But community, your village, your partner, I can't do it without the support of a loving partner. Because
Yeah.
that's huge, right? In order to be able to do the things that I want to do and he needs to do the things he needs to do, we've got to hold each other down. And that's why I always say the foundation is the your unit is
Yeah.
your family, and you're the foundation of your family as it grows. So I know for sure my village, my husband, and really being honest with myself as to what I can take on. Sometimes I
Mm.
tend to want to do it all, and I have realized
Yeah.
like into it like
Yes.
no, I can't. So what can I feasibly get done today and still feel good about how how the day ended. And some days all the things are going to get checked off, and some days, you know what, but everybody's healthy and fed and safe and everybody's good. I did a good job. I did the best that I could, and I've got to,
Yes.
sometimes it's that simple stuff, like down to the
Right.
basics, where it's like if I get too caught up in everything being perfect in the way that I used to be able to do it, doesn't matter. I
Yeah.
also think about things very differently, and my kids also make me want to do things at a bigger level, which when I stepped into the role as president, the only reason I remember being hesitant was at first thinking, oh my God, I'm a new mom. My child is 6 months old. Um, I work, I have, I'm a wife, I have all like the family stuff I help support. Like, how can I handle this? And then I said, and I tell this story all the time, if I'm going to tell my children, and in that instance, my son, that he should do things that scare him or things, if he feels compelled to do something, it's tugging at his heartstrings, and he feels like, no, I need to do this, then I need to lead by example. So in that moment, I had all of those fears like, can I do this at a level that I'm going to be proud of and that I can give back meaningfully? But then I said, but if you really want to, you'll figure it out. And so make him proud, make yourself proud, and do it.
Yes. And you're doing an amazing, amazing job. Like you are the New Jersey program is growing and thriving so much under your leadership that it's mind blowing. And so you're definitely the right person to be in that role. Looking at your life right now, in this current season that you're in, what do you believe is your God given assignment in this season of your life? Because I feel like it changes, it shifts. Our I feel like when we talk about purpose, like our purpose never changes, right? But the assignments change. So we get to live out our purpose through different work. What would you say that work is for you in this season of your life?
I think for me, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot this year, um, I just got baptized recently. And so I told myself, I love giving back to the community. I love being involved in the community, but I wanted to be more involved in my church community, in my
Mm.
faith-based community. I want to start stepping out and working directly with the youth, like working, I see my children, and that's another reason why it reminds me of how much of the youth-based work that I've done professionally, how much I want to bring all of that into my faith-based community and start to give back and pour into the next generation of faith leaders, right? There's a bunch. I feel like everyone thinks, oh, does that mean you have to be a pastor, a minister? And I'm like, no, I think we can all do that. We're all pastors and ministers in our own right. And so why not work with our children to show them, because they are
Yeah.
so aware. They have a they have this connection to spirit that even if they don't have the words for it yet, it's just so special to see it. And I feel like
Mhm.
being back in the church community has shown me that I want to do that. So that's what I see myself focusing on as I close out this year and really think about next year. That's what I would like to give a lot of myself to.
Ooh, I love that. I think that that's a perfect, it's perfect for you, especially in this season of your life as your own babies are growing, as you yourself are growing in your own walk, with Jesus. I think it's just a natural evolution. I had my own, even, once I got baptized and I started immersing myself more in my faith. My purpose didn't shift, but the way that I started to live it out did, right? And so I can definitely see you stepping into that and being successful in that. Now, when you think about the legacy you want to leave, both for your children and your community and your family, what do you hope it reflects? Like when it's all said and done, what would your life have represented? Or what do you want it to have had represented?
Community and service.
Mm,
And service meaning like not, in so many ways, serving God, being of service to others in need, serving myself, like just realizing the importance that we all hold in being of service to one another. And I feel
yeah,
like that, and like always making sure that while you're serving others, you're uplifting and bringing those along with you so that they can continue to fulfill their purpose and service. So we all have one. And I find that for me, I just I just want to open every door, open every heart that I can cross and say, you know what feels good for you? What do you want to do? How are you going to leave your mark on the world? And for me, it's like I want to be able to be in a position to take everything that I've learned and I'm learning and to serve, to give it back, to continue to develop that in different ways, but also just always keep it present. Like I'm giving back, I'm being of service, and I'm doing it for my community.
I
That's the
think
legacy that I'd like to leave.
you're absolutely doing it. You're living it out already. Um, and so before I let you go, I know that you have an event coming up soon with the 100 Hispanic Women of New Jersey. So for those who are listening, who are in the tri-state area that are looking to be a part of community, who want to kind of get involved, or maybe want just to know what the 100 Hispanic Women of New Jersey are doing, talk a little bit about the event and how they can register or RSVP.
Sure. Thank you for that. So 100 Hispanic Women, New Jersey, we will be hosting our annual Hispanic Heritage Fundraising event, and that is going to be on Saturday, October 4th from 12 to 4 in Hilden, New Jersey. And I'll definitely provide more details about the event, but I want to mention that if you're interested in getting tickets, it's on our website, www.100hispanicwomen.org. And basically, the event is an opportunity to celebrate our heritage, to celebrate everything that we bring as a community in service and in celebration of 100 Hispanic women, and also just Hispanic Heritage Month altogether. There's an opportunity to celebrate leaders in the community. So we're going to honor a few folks there. We're also ultimately fundraising for scholarships for Latinas, and we provide scholarships all the way from the associate level all the way to the doctorate level. So you can imagine when we're talking about academic support, financial support, For your academics beyond, your bachelor's degree, which already is like your first entry point into a college education, we also provide it beyond that. And it's an honor to do so. So being a part of that event, whether you purchase a ticket, whether you sponsor a ticket, whether you want to discuss partnership opportunities with us, um, we welcome you to join us. We welcome you to learn more about what we do, to be in community with us. You'll learn, you'll celebrate, you'll grow, you'll network. Lots of connections to be made in these spaces. As you can see, connections happen through events, and they're often even more special than you can imagine. So if you want to be in community and you want to give back, come find us on Saturday, October 4th.
Yes, I will share all the details in the episode notes. I'll actually provide the link so it'll be easy for you
Yes.
to go and purchase your tickets. There's no excuse why you should not be there. But I want to thank you, Luisa, for your time, for your honesty, your vulnerability, for sharing your heartfelt story. I wanted you to be a guest because I feel like there's just so much power in your testimony specifically, and I hope that this touches at least one person. If it hits one person, then we have done our job. So until next time, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you go and you follow Luisa. I'm going to put her IG information in the episode notes, but connect and let her know. If her story moved you, send her a message and let her know. So until next time, remember, mi gente, that you were created for more.